there, guys and dolls. I'm Danny Riggs, and welcome back to ResTube. Today I'm very happy to be able to present to you our second interview, and that interview is with novelist, autobiographer, and journalist Jim Knipfel. Jim has written 3 memoirs and a number of novels. As a Res head, you probably know him from the liner notes of Cherry Red's Preserved series. He can also be seen in Don Hardy's documentary Theory of Obscurity. I was thrilled when Jim said that he'd do the episode, and so I sent him my questions. The segment he shot and sent back features his computer reading those questions, and so I've decided to leave those questions in instead of filming a separate segment myself. After all, why look at my face for that long if it's not absolutely necessary? Oh, and speaking of looking at, Jim's blind. Not that that's important, but it might help to give his segment a bit of context. So without any further ado, enjoy ResTube's interview with Mr. Jim Knipfel.
Oh dear. There we go.
1. What was your first encounter with the world of the residents? New line.
Well, that's a bit of a story. I grew up in a small town in the American Midwest, and we didn't really have record stores that sold Residents albums. But I was lucky enough to have some more worldly friends who knew about strange music and were always recommending things and passing along tapes. So this was about 1979, 1980. And so that's how I learned about people like Philip Glass, Laurie Anderson, other people, Inuit throat and harp music. And all these people were always telling me, you need to hear the Residents. I mean, I don't know what it was about myself that led them to think it would be a good match. But for all their talk, nobody ever passed along a Residents recording. So a couple of years later, I was at staying with a friend in a college town, and he was at work. And I went through his record collection, and he had something called Not Available by the Residents. And I thought, well, now I'll be able to see what this is all about. And I took it off the shelf, put it on the turntable, and well, lo and behold, at that moment, the entire universe turned inside out, and things have been very, very weird ever since.
New line. 2. What are your favorite projects from when you first discovered the group? New line.
That's also a tricky question. In the past, I've been asked to do things like name my top 10 Residents albums, and I always end up giving them a list of 15 or 20, right? In no particular order. I mean, Not Available is always at the top. I mean, I have a very soft spot for that one because that was the first one, and it remains, I think, the purest thing they ever recorded. Just giving more credence to the theory of obscurity. There's also God in Three Persons, Demons Dance Alone, Freak Show, commercial album, old trilogy, Residue, The Replacement, Safety's Cootie Woody, Animal Lover, Bunny Boy. I mean, the easiest way to answer that question is to simply say all of them.
New line. 3. How many live shows have you been to, and what was the last one you were actually able to see? New line.
I've never counted. Let me put it this way. Everything beginning with 13th Anniversary, which I saw in Chicago in 1985. Then everything they've done in New York since, including Sam's Enchanted Evening and God in Three Persons at MoMA, with 2 exceptions. One, and I'm still kicking myself for this one, I never saw Cube E live. My wife, long before I knew her, saw the Larval version of the show, which they played at Lincoln Center here in town, and then she went to see the full show later. But as it happens, when they were playing New York, I was in the process of moving from Philly to Brooklyn, and so was preoccupied and missed it, kicking myself ever since for that one. And then the last one that I missed was In Between Dreams. I don't even remember why I missed it anymore, but it was turned out to be a moot point because police shut down their New York show after about 20 minutes. But those were the only two.
New line. 4. Considering that most residents' projects have such strong visual aspects, how do you enjoy their output since losing your sight on a purely auditive level, or does someone fill in the visuals to you? New line.
Let me back up because you were also asking what was the last show I was actually able to see. That would have been Wormwood, 1999. My wife and I went to all three shows at Irving Plaza here in New York, and my eyesight was not great at the time, and it was fading fast. But that's the last one where I could get a sense of what things looked like and how people were dressed. And but she's fantastic. My wife Morgan is fantastic about filling in the details and giving me a real visual picture of what things are happening. I also have another friend who comes to live shows, who's also very, very good at describing the visuals for me. And if neither of them are available, then I just make things up, and that works just as well too.
Help me. New line. 5. When did you first write about the group? New line.
That would have had to have been in the late 80s. I was writing for an alternative weekly based in Philadelphia at the time. And so I know I wrote things about them then. I don't remember what the first thing was. It was probably just kind of a general appreciation of the residents. Then maybe a review or two here and there. But then it was around 1990 that things really took off, and so exactly what I've written about them, where and when, became a bit of a blur after 90.
6. When and how did you first meet the residents? New line.
Well, for the record, I have never met the residents, but by way of answering your question, in 1990, I was working on a feature story about artists, musicians, painters, filmmakers who employed sideshow and freak show imagery in their work. And so if you're writing on a subject like that, of course, you need to include the residents. In fact, I think I concocted the story specifically to have an excuse to get in touch with the residents. So while I was working on it, I called the Cryptid Corporation out of the blue and ended up talking to Homer Flynn, who informed me that at that very moment, as we spoke, the residents were in the studio recording their next album, Freak Show. So it was a very serendipitous accident that I would call at that moment to ask that question. And we kept talking, and we became very good friends. And the years that followed, I started doing little things for them here and there. So it all worked out. Trace it back to 1990. Gosh, 30 plus years.
Please help me. New line. 7. Do you have any anecdotes you could share with us? New line.
Do I have anecdotes? Yes. Anecdotes that I can share. I don't dare. But I can give you one little tidbit, one little bit of trivia that I know I've never written, and I don't think anybody else has either. And this is absolutely true, that novelist Thomas Pynchon went to see the Bunny Boy show when it played New York, and he had a grand time. And in fact, he went on to drop a residence reference into his novel Against the Day. So try and find it. It's an 1,100-page novel.
New line. 8. This question does not exist. New line. My God, will no one help me? New line. 9. Will you ever publish a book on the residents? New line.
I think the short answer to that is no, because Ian Shirley and Uncle Willie have already beaten me to the punch on that one. Back in 2012, when I did an oral history of the pre-residents from 1966 up to the boarding house show in 1970, I had the idea that I could just roll with that, just continue doing an oral history covering what was at the time their next 40 years. But even doing that small chunk, just those couple of years, took a great deal of work. And looking ahead with the number of people they've worked with, I realized it was completely overwhelming. And so I dropped that idea. I've just been content since to use the liner notes for the Cherry Red releases to just kind of lay out their history that way. So one thing though, I think somewhere down the line, some academic, some smart Joe, needs to do an in-depth study of residential poetics. The themes that continually crop up in their work and the structures, the poetic structures of what they're doing, because I think it's very rich and deserves study, but I'm not smart enough to do it.
New line. New line. It's the CIA. I'm certain of it. New line. New line. 10. Which of your novels would you recommend to a residence fan and why? New line.
That would... Well, all of my books contain residence references scattered throughout, if you know what you're looking for. Probably the two that probably best embody a residential aesthetic would be a novel called The Blow-Off, and then an earlier collection of short stories called These Children Who Come at You with Knives. Interesting anecdote about the second, about these children, is that when I finished an early draft, I sent it off to the residents to see if they had any editorial comments to make. And I never, ever, ever do that. I never show anybody anything that I'm working on. But I sent it off to them because I thought they'd like it. And when they wrote back, they gave me what turned out to be what I consider the best joke in the book. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. Just read the book, and when you come across the best joke, know that it came from the residents, and I'm deeply grateful to them for that.
They accuse me of insane things I couldn't have done. New line. 11. The liner notes you write for Cherry Red's preserved series are exquisite. Do you do all your own research, or are you supplied with information? New line.
I do all my own research up to a point. When I finish, say, a second or third draft, if there are any lingering, say, fact-checking questions, or what we in the journalism business call deep background questions, I have been instructed by people at the Cryptic Corporation to handle them this way. I don't fully understand it, but at that point, if I have questions, I'm supposed to print them out, and I go into Manhattan, and there is an underground parking garage in Lower Manhattan, and I go down to the third level, and in the northeast corner of that level, there is a white Datsun parked. It's always been there, so far as I know. It's never moved. So I take the sheet of questions, I roll it up, and I tuck it into the tailpipe of the white Datsun. Then I go away, and I come back 5 days later, always 5 days, and the answers will likewise be rolled up and tucked into the tailpipe. I don't know who's doing it. I don't know how this works, but people at the Cryptic Corporation who have final say over all the liner notes, they always seem quite pleased. And that's what I'm told to do. And it's worked for these last few years, so I'm going to keep doing it that way.
New line. 12. Do you still follow the recent releases? And if new line. 12. New line.
Yes, actually, I get everything that comes out, and I'm liking it as much as I always have. Of course, I mean, from say going back Bunny Boy onward, I mean, that's over a decade. I liked the Intruders and Ghost of Hope. I thought Metal, Meat, and Bone was absolutely fantastic, and I loved the whole backstory surrounding the project. It's just a shame that, there were a lot of things set up for Metal, Meat, and Bone that, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, weren't able to be realized. So, but still, we have the set, we have the singles. I thought that was great.
I am a desperate man. I've been here for 8 months now. A new line 13. Are you also a collector? What's your prize per session? New line.
Oh, we have so many things here. Let's see if I can show you a couple of them. Over here, you should be able to see that's an original 13th anniversary poster for a New York show. Over here, we have a print by Homer Flynn, an autographed photo of Peggy Honeydew. My wife and I have boxes and boxes of interesting whatnot. Here, let me show you a couple things in here. We have, let's see, the Residence, that's the front, analog handheld game. Let's see, a drink coaster that came out. Here's a rare thing. Most people haven't seen this or even know that it exists because I think there are only 5 of them made. This is an official Residence cane tip for a red and white blind man's cane. So I'm never going to use it, of course, but very, very pleased with that one. Official Residence, padlock. I have, again, we have boxes of stuff. I think among my favorites for those obsessive fans with long memories, I'll just say that I have a bear jaw. And not only do I have a bear jaw, but I have a Save the Bear Jaw bumper sticker. Very proud of those things. The real prizes, though, are not are not my Third Reich and Roll beer stein or my sterling silver freak show pin made with a real glass human eye, but it's the files that I have around here, both paper and electronic files of all sorts of stuff that I'm just going to keep to myself right now. That's what's next.
New line 14. What can we look forward to in the future? New line.
We would likely look forward to more hurricanes, rising sea temperatures, more blizzards like we had yesterday here in Brooklyn, and probably more reality shows on the television.
I hear them coming. I don't know how much longer I can hold out. New line 15. You're an inquisitive soul with lots of info. Can you tell us who are the residents? New line.
Who are the residents? I thought you were.
New line. Oh God, please help. Space.